So let's start this video by saying that I just fixed FSR3 frame generation implementations. And you might ask, you fixed what? Well, I cannot say that I fixed it myself, I can say that I fixed it on my computer by using mods. In this case, the Look FZ's mod, both with the FSR2 to FSR3 mod and the new Uniscaler mod that it just released. And believe me, it works. And if you just landed on this video and you don't really know what's going on, well, basically some recent FSR3 implementations or some recent updates made the FSR3 frame generation not work properly. It shows the high FPS numbers, in some scenarios it even shows a smoother frame timeline, but the frames just aren't working as they should and the gameplay does not feel fluid as it should. It happened with the latest update of Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, it happened with Robocop Rock City, it happened with Thaumaturge and so on, so yeah. Lots of recent games having a bad frame generation implementation, although the mods fix it. Using this mod actually makes the frame generation in The Last of Us work properly. It makes the frame generation on Robocop work properly as well, and in some games like Thaumaturge, yeah, it is still better than the official implementation, which is kind of funny if you think about it. So the mod works better than the official implementation. The mod done by one or two people, let's say that, works better than a team of people implementing that same thing on a game. Things nowadays are so messed up. And in order to get this mod, you actually need to be a patron or a patron, whatever, of Look FZ. You just go to his Patreon, become a patron or a patron. Once again, doesn't really matter. You go there and then you have access to download all his Uniscaler and preview mods that he has. So you can download everything there and you have access on Discord to the mod chat, to the mod questions and so on. But after you downloading the mod, for example, the Uniscaler, it will be something like this. You download it, you copy it to a single folder, and it will be like this. But once again, let's start with The Last of Us, because even on video, I can definitely assure you that you can see the difference. But before, let's just lay an eye on today's sponsor. Today's video sponsor is GVG More, bringing you lots of software deals like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2019 or 2021 with a new Windows 11 design. And for all of these, you can use my SKG discount code for 30% off, getting a Windows 11 serial key for $22 and a Windows 10 one for only $15. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. And well, we're now in The Last of Us, as you can see, 1440p. And we have the native AA, let's just disable frame generation, yes. And we have 7374. And yeah, I mean, it works as 70 FPS should. It is using, once again, 1440p ultra settings with native AA. And we have 68, 72 FPS, it depends. As soon as I enable frame generation, this is the official implementation. We go to 120, and if you look at the frame timeline, it feels fine, but look at the image. I don't know if you can see this on video, but it is perfectly noticeable when playing, and it just doesn't feel right. I mean, it says 130 FPS, but it feels like I'm still having 70 FPS, but with a lot more motion blur. It means that the frames aren't being put where they should be in order to achieve that real smoothness that we can get from frame generation. Basically, what I feel here is like having still 70 FPS, but once again with more motion blur. But now look at this. We have the Steam folder of The Last of Us Part 1. Basically, what you have to do is go here, open the folder, then you download the latest Uniscaler version of the mod, which is the version 4, I believe, the preview. The preview 5 is coming tomorrow or something like that. Now, all you have to do is go copy the Uniscaler files, paste it on the game folder, just like this, and you're good to go. And now we're here, with the mod enabled, with frame generation enabled, and yes, look at this. So much better. We're still using frame generation. As you can see, we have no issues with the HUD. So it is all working, once again, everything working fine as it should, but the smoothness of the frame generation is just here. Look at how much smoother it is. It's just impressive. And if we go here, once again, sorry about that, you can see that the frame generation is enabled and we still have the same 120 FPS, but instead of having that feeling of having 70 FPS with more motion blur, we actually have the frame generation smoothness working as it should, and damn, it feels great. Finally, once again, the modders are doing what the developers can't, and this is actually working very well, very well. I mean, it seems like the developers team don't really have functioning hindsight in order to see that the smoothness isn't there when they are implementing the frame generation techniques. But now with the mod from LookFZ, it is working as it should from the beginning. But let's try another game. Now with Robocop Rock City, and Robocop is an excellent scenario to show you exactly what I want to show you, because we can use both of the frame generation techniques at the same time. We're using TSR, for example, TSR at 67%, and we're getting 100 FPS, 100 something, it is smooth. Now we can go to, let's say, I know that it appears here the LSS and I'm using an AMD card, but we'll get there. Now we can use, for example, the official FSR3 implementation without frame generation, and as you can see, 119, sorry, and it still works great, still smooth, very nice. The official FSR3 implementation. As soon as we go here, let's say to, frame generation, the frame timeline gets completely messed up. If you look at the frame timeline, it is a chaos. And even though I'm getting 190 FPS, the game just doesn't feel smooth. And you might say, well, you're having tearing because you're out of your monitor's refresh rate, so you're not using FreeSync. But that's not the case. It is not tearing per se. It just doesn't feel smooth at all. And if you look at the frame time, you know why. It just feels strange. It feels way worse than that. But now, as soon as we go to the DLSS one, which is actually, it shows the DLSS even though we're using an AMD card, it shows the DLSS because it is the DLSS to FSR mod. It says the DLSS on the game, but we're actually using the FSR3 mod on the background. It's just the game that sees it as the DLSS in order to enable it. And as soon as you enable this frame generation, look at the frame timeline, it gets very good, and yeah, now it is smooth. Even moving the mouse, I can see it is smooth. Now I can see the tearing, of course, but at the same time the gameplay is just really smooth. That's an awesome thing to have. As soon as I move the mouse, I can see that we have fluidity, something that does not happen with the FSR3 frame generation implementation. The official one, it just doesn't work as well, it just isn't fluid. For example here, even with tearing, yeah, the fluidity is there. As soon as, once again, I go back to the official implementation of FSR3, the frame timeline gets messed up, and yeah, it just feels like it's crashing, and it makes no sense. It feels like it isn't connected. As soon, once again, as we enable the mod, yeah, so much better. So much better. And I mean, we're running at really high FPS numbers, but if you're running at lower numbers like we did with The Last of Us, for example, you can clearly see the difference in between the FSR3 frame generation implementation and the modded one, the official and the modded one. You'll get a bigger difference there. Since we're running the 7900 GRE and this game isn't that heavy, the difference isn't as noticeable because, once again, you can notice, of course, but because, once again, I mean, we're getting very high FPS numbers, and yeah, but still, such a big difference. But wait, there's more. Now we have Thaumaturge, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and we're running TSR with scaling quality set to high, with haptic settings, basically maximum settings, I believe. So Thaumaturge. Yes, we want to make the changes, and as you can see, we have 80 FPS, and the game feels smooth. At least for what 80 FPS should feel. Feels fine. The character moving feels okay. As soon as we go, for example, to, let's try to enable FSR3. We enable FSR3, but we don't enable the frame generation. This is actually bugged. It automatically enables the frame generation. But yeah, so no frame generation, and we have 83, and still the character moving is smooth. for what 80 FPS should feel. It's fine. As soon as we enable the frame generation, once again, the official frame generation implementation, you enable it and immediately you get this messed up frame time like we did in Robocop. And if we look at the character movement, I mean, it just feels like, once again, it feels like still 80 FPS or 70 FPS, but with a higher motion blur. I mean, if you look at the character properly, I know this is really harder to see on video, but if you look at the character when he's moving, yeah, it just doesn't feel smooth. It feels like there are some missing information there, and it feels like we are actually running way lower FPS than we are. In fact, we are running 140, but it definitely doesn't feel like 140. But once again, as soon as we go, because we already have the mod installed like we did in Robocop, I just copied the files there and tweaked it a bit. You can see on this video that I made, of course, showing you more games, and Robocop was on one of them. But basically, if we go here once again to the DLSS, which is the mod, and we enable the frame generation, as soon as we enable the frame generation, the frame timeline gets better, not even close to what we had before. And look at the character moving now. Oh, just so much better. Now these are real 155 FPS, at least 155 FPS smoothness. Just once again, enabling the frame generation one more time for you guys to see. FSR3 frame generation, the frame timeline gets messed up, and the character moving just doesn't feel as smooth. It's not even close. I don't know why, but it isn't even close. I don't think that the developers have functioning eyesight if they actually are implementing the FSR3 frame generation in their games, and they think that this is normal. No, this is not normal. This is like 80 FPS fluidity with some more frames in between, but it just doesn't feel like real 144. As soon as we enable the mod and we enable real 144 FPS, yeah, so much smoother. So much smoother. It feels like a different game already. Yeah, not even close. And yeah guys, basically that's it. It seems that once again, the modders need to do what the developers don't. The Avatar 1 was the first real FSR implementation, FSR3 frame generation implementation, and it was indeed working very well. It was working very well. It was one of the best implementations so far. It was the third implementation, but the best of them. It worked really well with variable refresh rate and so on. But as soon as the developers updated it, it started working poorly once again, like the one in The Last of Us. And if developers think this is normal, no, this is not normal, and it should not happen. And if you want to know how to install these mods, I actually have this video passing right now on the screen where I show you the settings that I use and how to install the mods properly. I actually show you that for The Witcher, Cyberpunk and some others. Once again, you can use it in games like Thaumaturge, you can use it in games, so many games actually, even Horizon Forbidden West. It works in Horizon Forbidden West. It isn't perfect, but it definitely works. And just because I don't want you to think that I'm lying, here we are in Horizon Forbidden West, and look at it. We have 170 frames. We're running maximum settings with the LSS enabled, but one thing that I can't make it work properly on this game, but that's my bad, most likely my bad, not the modder's fault. But if, for example, if you look at the HUD or the UI is still shimmering. The frame generation is working, definitely, but the UI is shimmering. I can, for example, go here and enable the frame generation option like we did in games like like we did in other games like, for example, The Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk. I can go here and enable the frame generation option, for example, on, apply, and I mean, the HUD now works, the UI, but the frame generation, although it says that we are having 160, 170, the frame generation isn't working. As you can see, yeah, we have way less data than we had before. Basically, we have just the numbers, the input numbers, but the frame generation isn't working. But that's what we get in these games. But in others like The Witcher 3, Robocop, Thaumaturge and so on, you have no HUD issues and the games work fine. Sometimes way better than the official implementations. And well guys, that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share this video. I just really wanted to make this video because it is really important. I believe it is really important for people to understand that I don't really know if the issue is actually on the AMD side or on the developer side. And recent games like Robocop, The Last of Us and so on, and the Thaumaturge, for example, having really poor FSR3 frame generation implementation, but the FSR3 frame generation isn't broken. It can work. As soon as you do the mod, it is butter smooth, meaning that FSR3 frame generation is working in those games. It is just not properly applied. So someone needs to step it up, or AMD or the developers. Once again, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video, and see you in the next video, guys. And by the way, leave your comment in the comment section and let me know what you think about the mods, if you tested them, if they're working for you or not, and if you have any doubts as well, leave them in the comment section. Ciao.